In 1971, General Idi Amin Dada overthrew the elected government of Milton Obote and declared himself president of Uganda, launching a ruthless 8-year regime in which an estimated 300,000 civilians were massacred. His expulsion of all Indian and Pakistan citizens in 1972, along with increasing military expeditions, brought about the country's economic decline, the impact of which lasted for decades. In 1979, his reign of terror came to an end as Ugandan exiles and Tanzanians took control of the capital of Kampala, forcing Amin to flee. Never brought to justice for his heinous crimes, Amin lived out of the remainder of his life in Saudi Arabia. Idi Amin Dada was born in 1925 in Koboko in northern western Uganda to a Kakwa father and a Lugbara mother who separated shortly afterwards. In 1949, after receiving honorary or rudimentary education, Amin joined the King's African Rifles, a regiment of the British colonial army, and quickly rose through the ranks. He was deployed to Somalia in 1949 to fight the Shifta rebels and later fought with the British during the suppression of the Mau Mau rebellion in Kenya between 1952 to 1956. In 1959, he attained the rank of Effendi, the highest position for a black African soldier within the King's African Rifles, and by 1966, he had been appointed commander of the armed forces. After more than 70 years under the British rule, Uganda gained its independence on October the 9th, 1962, and Milton Obote became the nation's first prime minister. By 1964, Obote had forged an alliance with Amin, who helped expand the size and power of the Ugandan army. In February 1966, following accusations that the pair was responsible for smuggling gold and ivory from Congo that were subsequently traded for arms, Obote suspended the constitution and proclaimed himself executive president. Shortly thereafter, Obote sent Amin to dethrone King Mutesa II, also known as King Freddy, who ruled the powerful kingdom of Uganda in south-central Uganda. Assassination attempts later, Obote began to question Amin's loyalty and ordered his arrest while en route to Singapore for a Commonwealth Head of Government Conference. During his absence, Amin took the offensive and staged a coup on January 25, 1971, seizing control of the government and forcing Obote into exile. Once in power, Amin began mass executions upon Acholi and Lango, Christian tribes that had been loyal to Obote and therefore perceived as a threat. He also began terrorizing the general public through the various internal security forces he organized, such as the State Rescue Bureau and the Public Safety Unit, whose main purpose was to eliminate those who opposed his regime. In 1972, Amin expelled Uganda's Asian population, which numbered between 50,000 and 70,000, resulting in a collapse of the economy as manufacturing, agriculture, and commerce came to a screeching halt without the appropriate resource to support them.
I had a dream sent last night from God. He has instructed me to throw out all Asians from the country. Uganda must be for Ugandans only.
When the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine hijacked an Air France flight from Israel to Paris on June the 27th, 1976, Idi Amin welcomed the terrorists and supplied them with troops and weapons, but was humiliated when Israel commandos subsequently rescued the hostages in a surprise raid on Entebbe airport. In the aftermath, Amin ordered the execution of several airport personnel, hundreds of Kenyans who were believed to have conspired with Israel, and an elderly British hostage who had previously been escorted to a nearby hospital. Throughout this oppressive rule, Amin was estimated to have been responsible for the death of roughly 300,000 civilians. Over the time, the number of Amin's intimate allies dwindled, and formerly royal troops began to mutiny. When some fled across the border into Tanzania, Amin accused Tanzanian President Julius Nyerere of instigating the unrest and retaliated by annexing the Kagera Salient, a strip of territory north of the Kagera River, in November 1978. 2 weeks later, Nyerere mobilized a counter-offensive to recapture the land and drove the Ugandan army with the help of the Ugandan exiles. The battle raged into Uganda, and on April 11, 1979, Amin was forced to flee when Kampala was captured. Although he was originally sought refuge in Libya, he later moved to Saudi Arabia, where he lived comfortably until his death of multiple organ failure in 2003. Amin was impressed by his quick action and initiative, fond of Scotland as a symbol of resilience and admiring of the Scottish people for their resistance to the English. Amin was delighted to discover Galligan's nationality and once exchanged his military shirt for Galligan's Scotland shirt. Nicholas Galligan was the main protagonist of the 2006 film The Last King of Scotland. He was a Scottish doctor and Dr. Junju's partner and President Idi Amin's former physician. He was portrayed by James McAvoy, who is also from Scotland, in the movie The Last King of Scotland, trying to showcase the life of General Idi Amin. The Last King of Scotland is only loosely based on a book of the same name, which itself is only loosely based on the truth. If Galligan is based on anyone, he's based again very loosely on Bob Assos, a white former British soldier who became one of Amin's closest advisors. Did you know that during his time in the army, Amin became the light heavyweight boxing champion of Uganda, a title he held for 9 years between 1951 and 1960? Having learned that Obote was planning to arrest him for misappropriating army funds, Amin launched a coup on the 25th of January 1971 while Obote was attending a Commonwealth Summit in Singapore. Army and military police forces loyal to Amin moved to secure strategic positions in and around Kampala and Entebbe. Well, some viewed him as an instantly relatable man of the people. Others believe he is the truest embodiment of evil. A thoughtful portrait of multi-faced monster, Idi Amin, famous for the wrong reason, peels back the layers of his controversial Ugandan leader with insights from those who knew him best. When Amin seized power following a military coup in 1971, the people of Uganda were euphoric for the possibility of change. In the earliest days of his regime, his flamboyance and spontaneity were interpreted by many to represent a charming connection to the common man. He was often shown mixing and conversing with the people, and his lack of formal education made him appear more accessible and less entitled than most worldly leaders were presumed to be. According to several insiders to the Amin regime who are interviewed in the film, those same qualities made him singularly unfit to serve as a president. Little could he understand the delicacies and nuances of global politics, and these intellectual shortcomings inspired his most aggressive impulses. The more he felt insecure, the more ruthless he became. One interview suggests explains. The remnant of that ruthlessness can still be felt nearly 40 years after his reign, when you visit the torture chambers where members of the opposition were brutally slain. You hear stories of bodies being dumped into the Nile River by the truckload. You learn of Amin's beliefs in witchcraft and his casual thirst for human blood. Others in the film, including Amin's own children, speaking adamantly of the leader's tenacity in the face of great struggle. We are told of his rise through the rank of colonial British Army, his 9-year stint as a light heavyweight boxing champion, and the various appetite for women, and that led him to take 5 wives and father over 40 children. Acts that others view as barbaric, such as Amin's Asian population ban, which effectively crippled the economy of Uganda at the time, is now viewed by some as the embracing of new African entrepreneurship. Shortly after Amin's departure, Lule and the Ugandan National Liberation Front moved to Kampala, where they established an interim government. Lule became president, advised by the temporary parliament, the National Consultative Council. Ugandans who endured the deprivations of Amin era became even more delusioned with their leaders. And I believe with a few of the details I've given about Amin can all change your perspective about Idi Amin Dada. But hey, please come down in the comment section and let me know, what do you think about Idi Amin Dada and to why he's called the Butcher of Uganda. My name is Osie The Born Child. Thank you so much for tuning in to African Diaspora News Channel. Until next time, I'll be seeing you in another video. But hey, don't forget, I love you all.